my name is Alyssa and thank you so much for visiting my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing 4 delicious dump and go crockpot meals that only cost around $13 for each meal. So I feel like this video could probably be pretty helpful, especially right now. Inflation is hitting us all so hard. Things are so expensive, especially at the grocery store. So I've been finding that there are still ways to feed your family inexpensive meals that they're still going to love. And that's what I'm here to show you. So the prices of each item I'm going to be sharing with you are directly from Walmart. You may find them somewhere else cheaper, but for me and where I live, the cheapest items I can usually find are from our local Walmart. So I do want to point out that some of the items I'm going to be using in my recipes for the video aren't necessarily the Walmart brand, so they're not the cheapest items, but they're items I already had in my pantry prior to doing this, so I just wanted to use those up without having to buy more. And lastly, these meals that I'm going to be making are feeding my family of 4, so that's 2 adults and then 2 kids. Each meal fed us enough to fill us up for dinner each night, and then I also had enough to put in the fridge for leftovers throughout the week. So I feel like these meals could probably feed about 6 or so people depending on how much food each person eats. All right, so with all that said, let's go get cooking.
So the first recipe I have to share is this delicious creamy peppers and sausage pasta. So to start, you're gonna need 2 large bell peppers. I just have a bag of these mini peppers in my fridge that I decided to use instead. Next, you're going to need 1 24-ounce jar of tomato sauce and 1 pack of chicken sausage links, as well as a box of cream cheese, and then some garlic, and then half of an onion. And then I threw in some Italian seasoning. You don't necessarily need this, but if you have it, throw it in, and a box of your favorite pasta. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my veggies chopped up. I'm going to dice up half of an onion as well as my bell peppers. Then I'm going to slice my chicken sausage into bite-sized pieces. Now that I have everything cut up, I'm ready to put it all into the crock pot. I'm going to start with my peppers and onions as well as my chicken sausage and get that in first. Then I'm going to pour in 1 24-ounce jar of marinara sauce. Next, I'm going to take this cream cheese block. I'm going to take about half of it and cut that up into cubes and put that in on top of the marinara sauce. And then I'm going to do about 1 to 2 tablespoons of minced garlic, as well as 1 to 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning. The Italian seasoning is completely optional, and if you don't have it, don't worry about it. And lastly, I'm going to put 1 teaspoon of salt as well as 1 teaspoon of pepper in. And then I'm going to give it a good stir, and I'm going to get this set on low for 3 hours. Once it was done cooking, I just topped it on some cooked pasta, and it turned out so good. And it always does. This is one of my go-to meals when I'm looking for something cheap, simple, and delicious. The next meal I have to share with you is this crockpot chicken and stuffing with green beans. The items you're going to need for this recipe is 1 box of stuffing mix as well as 1 can of cream of chicken soup. And then you're going to need some sour cream as well as 2 cans of green beans. And 2 to 3 large chicken breasts. First thing I'm going to do is just spray my crock pot with some cooking spray. Next, I'm going to get my seasoned chicken breast into the crock pot, and I just seasoned this with a light sprinkle of some salt and pepper. And then over the chicken breast, I'm going to pour in 1 box of stuffing mix. And then I'm going to mix together 1 can of cream of chicken soup, as well as 3/4 cup of sour cream and 1/3 cup of water. And then I'm going to take this mixture and I'm going to pour it all over the stuffing mix and chicken breast in the crock pot. And lastly, I'm going to pour in 2 drained cans of green beans. Then I'm going to set my crock pot to cook on low for 6 hours. Once it was done cooking, I just took 2 forks and I shredded up all of the chicken breast really easily. I truly love the simplicity of a meal where you can get everything in the pot to cook at the same time. This meal has a protein, a veggie, and a starch in it, and it turned out so good. It was so easy to make. It only took just a few minutes to throw it all together to get it into the crock pot, and my whole family loved how it turned out. So the next recipe I have to share is creamy spinach and sausage ravioli. So the items you're going to need is 1 bag of cheesy ravioli, 1 bag of spinach, 1 jar of tomato sauce, a pound of sausage, some garlic, and then a bag of mozzarella cheese, which isn't shown here because I forgot it, but you're going to need that. So the first thing I did was cook my sausage over medium heat until it was no longer pink. And then next I'm going to add in about 1 to 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. Next, I'm going to spray my crock pot with some cooking spray and then pour in about 1 cup of the tomato sauce. Now the rest of the tomato sauce is going to be poured into the skillet with the cooked sausage. And then I just put a couple tablespoons of some water into the jar just to get the remaining amount of the tomato sauce, and I poured that into the sausage mixture. Now I'm just going to season it with a couple teaspoons of pepper as well as a couple teaspoons of salt. So now that my sauce is done cooking, I'm ready to get everything into the crock pot. So to start, I'm going to take half of the bag of ravioli and I'm going to layer that on top of the tomato sauce that's already in the crock pot. And then I'm going to take half of my sauce and pour that over the ravioli. And then I'm going to take about a cup of shredded mozzarella cheese and put that on top of the sauce. And then I'm going to repeat this. I'm going to put the rest of the ravioli on top of that, then all of the sauce all over the ravioli, and then about another cup of shredded mozzarella cheese on top of that. And then I'm going to cook this on low for 3 hours. After it's been cooking for the 3 hours, I'm going to add in 3 to 4 cups of fresh spinach. And then I'm going to get the lid on and I'm going to let this cook for 30 minutes on low. This is definitely a hearty meal and so delicious. It's also a great way to get veggies in with picky eaters because they have no idea there's that amount of spinach in this meal once it's cooked down. My kids gobbled it all up and absolutely loved it. And the last inexpensive crockpot meal I have to share with you is cheesy meatball subs with a side of broccoli. So the items you're going to need for this is 1 jar of marinara sauce, a bag of rolls, a block of mozzarella cheese, 1 bag of Italian meatballs, some garlic, and then a bag of frozen broccoli. So the first thing I'm going to do is shred the block of mozzarella cheese and set that aside. So now I'm ready to get everything into the crock pot. So I'm going to take the jar of marinara sauce and I'm going to pour half of that into the crock pot. And then on top of that, I'm going to put half of the bag of the frozen meatballs. And then I'm going to take the rest of the sauce and pour that all over the meatballs. And then I'm just making sure all of my meatballs are covered with some sauce. Next, I'm going to sprinkle about 1 to 2 tablespoons of minced garlic all over the meatballs and sauce. And next, I'm just going to season a little bit. I'm going to put about 1 teaspoon of pepper as well as 1 teaspoon of salt all over the sauce and meatballs. And then I also added in about 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning. This part is completely optional. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. And lastly, I'm going to take half of the shredded cheese that I shredded earlier and put that on top of the sauce. I'm going to save the other half for when I put together the sandwiches. And then I set this on low to cook for 5 hours. So when the meatballs were just about done, I got everything else ready. I set my oven to preheat at 350, and then I got my hoagie rolls ready to go. I used a serrated knife and I cut a long rectangular shape out of the top of the rolls, being careful not to cut all the way through. And then I just removed that piece of bread I cut out. And then I got these in my oven to toast for about 5 minutes. So once the rolls were done toasting, I took them out of the oven and I took some of the mozzarella cheese that I had saved earlier and I lined a good amount of cheese in the bottom portion of the roll. And then I got these back in the oven to bake about 5 more minutes just until the cheese is melted. So once the rolls were done in the broiler, they were ready to go. So I just took some sauce and I lined a thin layer of that into the roll. And then on top of that, I put about 4 meatballs. And then on top of the meatballs, I just added a little bit more sauce. And then to finish them off, I just topped them with the remaining amount of the shredded mozzarella cheese. And then I got these back in the oven to sit under the broiler for just about a minute or so just to get the cheese melted. You want to be careful to keep an eye on these so the broiler doesn't burn them. So I served these alongside the broccoli as well as some extra marinara sauce for dipping. These subs turned out so good, and I feel like you can't go wrong with a meatball sub, especially this one when it only cost around $13 for the entire meal and was so easy to make with the crock pot.
All right, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I really hope that you found it super helpful. I'll see you next time. Bye.